The mountain screamed. That's the only way to describe it. A sound so deep, so massive, it didn't just hit your ears, it hit your chest, your teeth, your bones. Like standing next to a freight train doing 100 miles an hour, except the train was made of rock, and it was coming from everywhere at once. It's 2 p.m. on August 5th, 2010. 600 feet of solid rock sits above your head, then 700, then 1,000, then 2,300 feet of mountain pressing down on you like God himself put his hand on the earth and just pushed. The ground lurches, men are thrown off their feet, helmet lamps shatter against the tunnel walls, and then in a single second, the lights go out. Complete total darkness. The dust hits next. Not like dust in your house. This is rock dust, ground up stone so thick and so fine it fills your lungs like wet concrete. Men are gagging, choking, crawling on their hands and knees because standing means breathing more of it. And somewhere behind them, in the direction of the only exit, there is no more tunnel. Just rock. 700,000 tons of collapsed mountain, sealing them in like a cork in a bottle. One miner looks at his watch in the last flicker of light. 2 p.m., Thursday afternoon. 33 men, 2,300 feet underground, and absolutely nobody on the surface knows if any of them are still breathing. The clock has already started. Here's what you need to know, fast. The San José Mine sits in the Atacama Desert in northern Chile, and if you've never heard of the Atacama, just picture the most barren, brutal, lonely landscape you've ever seen. And then make it worse. It's one of the driest places on the entire planet. No towns nearby, no hospitals nearby, just rock, dust, and copper ore. The mine had been running for over a century, and it had a reputation, not a good one. There had been accidents before, cave-ins before, safety inspectors had flagged problems, warnings had been filed, noted, and quietly ignored. The mine kept running because copper meant money, and money meant the warnings stayed on paper. On August 5th, 33 men went to work like any other day. They ranged from 19 years old to 63, fathers, brothers, grandfathers. One guy was only a few days into his very first week on the job. Another had spent more of his life underground than above it. These were working men, regular guys with mortgages, kids, soccer teams they followed on weekends. Their shift foreman was a man named Luis Ursua, quiet, methodical, the kind of man who doesn't raise his voice because he doesn't need to. And at the far end of their work area, built into the rock, was something called the refuge, a small emergency shelter, roughly the size of a studio apartment, designed to hold 10 people, stocked with emergency supplies meant to last 48 hours. 48 hours. They had food for 2 days. They had 33 men, and they had absolutely no idea that rescue was 69 days away. In the first hours after the collapse, nobody panicked. Not yet. Shock does that. It wraps around you like a blanket and makes everything feel slightly unreal, like maybe this isn't actually happening. They gathered in the refuge, counted heads, all 33 accounted for. A few cuts, some bruises, but nobody seriously hurt. That was the first miracle. Then they started taking inventory. What they had, one small emergency kit, a few basic tools, some water from the mine's industrial pipes, dirty, metallic, but water, and the food supply, canned tuna, crackers, canned peaches, a little bit of milk. Enough for 10 people for 2 days, divided among 33 men for an unknown amount of time. The math was brutal. Every 48 hours, each man got roughly 2 spoonfuls of canned tuna, a few crackers, a small sip of milk. That's not a meal. That's barely a taste. These are men who burn thousands of calories doing hard physical labor, and this is what they had. The temperature in that refuge sat at around 95 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity near 90%. Imagine the hottest, most suffocating summer day you've ever had. Now go sit in a bathroom with the shower running on full hot, close the door, and stay there for days. That was their reality, 24 hours a day with no break and no escape. They tried to find another way out. Small groups moved through the tunnels with whatever light sources they had left, searching for any path to the surface. Every single route was blocked, collapsed, sealed. The diesel vehicles, loaders, and trucks used for mining still had fuel. They ran them for light and for the small comfort of the engine sound. But running engines burn oxygen. In a sealed tunnel, that's a trade you can only make for so long. By day 3, some men started to crack. Arguments broke out. Fear turned into anger, and anger needed somewhere to go. A few men wanted to keep driving the vehicles. Others said they were poisoning the air. Voices got loud. Fists got tight. And Luis Orzua made a decision. He called a meeting, not a suggestion, a meeting. He laid out the reality in plain, simple terms. They had 2 choices: fall apart and die faster, or get organized and give rescue teams something to find. He proposed a strict rationing system, enforced by group vote, democratic. Every man had a voice, every man had a role. They voted, they agreed, and that single decision, that choice to treat each other like a community instead of 33 desperate strangers, is probably what kept them alive. Meanwhile, on the surface, rescue teams were drilling and missing. The mountain was enormous, the target area small, and the drill heads were hitting wrong spots, close but not close enough. Every failed attempt added another day to the clock these men were racing against. By day 8, men were losing weight visibly. Some were dizzy from hunger. One miner briefly lost consciousness. The darkness was getting heavier. Literally, the vehicle batteries were dying one by one until the tunnels were almost completely black. They were running out of everything: light, food, time. Here's the part nobody really talks about when they tell this story. Surviving the collapse, that took luck. Surviving the days that followed, that took something much harder. That took a daily, sometimes hourly choice to keep going when every single signal your body and your brain is sending you says, quit. The darkness was the worst part for many of them. Not scary darkness, existential darkness. The kind that makes you forget what sunlight felt like, what a blue sky looked like, whether the world above even still existed. They slept on the rock floor, hard, uneven, still warm from the heat of the earth. Men curled up next to each other for comfort more than warmth. Nobody talked about it. Nobody needed to. The physical toll was staggering. Some men lost more than 20 pounds. Skin infections spread from the constant sweat and zero hygiene. Respiratory problems from rock dust that never fully settled. Feet swollen from the heat, joints aching from sleeping on stone. Around day 10, one miner began to lose it. The fear became too much. He started screaming that they were all going to die down there, that no one was coming, that this was the end. The group surrounded him, held him, talked him back from the edge. Physically, gently, the way you'd handle someone you love who is breaking. And then, quietly, without anyone formally deciding it, a rule emerged. No doom talk. You don't say we're going to die. You don't say no one's coming. Not because it wasn't possible, it absolutely was, but because saying it out loud gave it power, and that was power they couldn't afford to give away. Urzúa kept holding his daily meetings. Every single day, underground, in the heat and the dark, he gathered his men and he gave each one a job. Someone managed the water, someone monitored the air, someone maintained the tunnel drainage to stop flooding. Purpose, that was the weapon. Give a man a job and you give him a reason to wake up tomorrow. And then there was Mario Sepulveda. The men called him Super Mario. Big personality, loud laugh, the kind of guy who, when the situation calls for gravity, cracks a joke instead, and somehow, impossibly, it's exactly the right call. Mario became the group's emotional engine. He organized activities. He got men talking, moving, laughing when laughing felt insane. He kept the air, metaphorically, from going completely stale. They stopped thinking about 69 days. They stopped thinking about rescue timelines and drill depths and surface operations. They thought about the next meal, the next shift, the next meeting, the next conversation with the guy lying next to them on the rock. Small targets, that's how you eat an impossible situation. One tiny bite at a time. Day 17. A drill breaks through the ceiling of their tunnel. It punches through the rock like a finger poking through paper. Small, just a few inches wide, but real, physical. A hole that goes up. And up means surface, and surface means someone is looking for them. The men rush toward it. Someone grabs a hammer and bangs on the drill shaft. Hard, frantic, desperate. "We're here! We're here! We are here!" On the surface, the drill operators feel the vibration. They pull the drill back up, and taped to the drill bit in red ink on a piece of paper is a note. 8 words in Spanish. Estamos bien en el refugio los 33. All 33 of us are fine in the shelter. The rescue coordinator reads it again, holds it up. The crowd gathered at the surface. Families, workers, journalists, erupts. People fall to their knees. People who have held it together for 17 days completely come apart, sobbing, screaming, hugging total strangers. 33 men, still alive, after 17 days underground. But here's the gut punch. They weren't out, not even close. Drilling a hole big enough to pass a human being through that much mountain would take weeks more. The note meant they were alive. It didn't mean they were safe. What came down the narrow supply shaft next changed everything anyway. Food, real food, medicine, toothbrushes, and a tiny fiber-optic camera cable. Through that cable, for the first time in 17 days, the miners saw light. Some of them wept, couldn't help it, just sat there in the dark and cried at the sight of a tiny glowing image of the world above. Letters from their families came down, voices through a communication line, the men above and the men below, talking, crying, promising. The rescue plan was massive. Engineers from around the world, 3 separate drilling operations running simultaneously, a race to see which one broke through first. On October 13, 2010, Day 69, the Phoenix 2 rescue capsule was ready. A custom-built steel pod, just wide enough for one man, lowered 2,300 feet down a newly drilled shaft. The world watched live, hundreds of millions of people. The first man to ride it up was Florencio Avalos. When the capsule broke the surface and the doors opened, he stepped out and immediately covered his eyes. 69 days without real sunlight, and now it hit him all at once like a physical force. One by one, all through the night and into the next day, man after man emerged from the earth, blinking, staggering, grabbing their children and refusing to let go. The last man up was Luis Urzúa, the foreman. He had refused, absolutely refused to leave until every single one of his 33 men was safely on the surface. When he stepped out of that capsule, the Chilean president was there to meet him. Urzúa looked at him and said something that got translated around the world. He had done his duty, and he hoped Chile had done the same. 69 days, 2,300 feet underground, 0 casualties. All 33 men survived. Recovery wasn't instant. It wasn't clean. Several miners dealt with PTSD for years. The dark, the heat, the hunger. That stuff doesn't just wash off in a hot shower. Some struggled to sleep in quiet rooms because the silence felt too much like the tunnel. Some couldn't hold down jobs, couldn't reconnect with families who had also been through their own kind of trauma on the surface. Mario Sepulveda, Super Mario, became a motivational speaker, traveled the world telling people what he learned in the dark. Luis Urzua's leadership became a case study in crisis management, taught in business schools and military training programs. The San José Mine was eventually shut down permanently. But here's what I want you to take from this. Those 33 men were not special. I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as the most important point of this whole story. They weren't trained soldiers or survival experts or extreme athletes. They were regular working guys who got handed an impossible situation on a regular Thursday afternoon. What saved them wasn't equipment. It wasn't luck, though luck played a role early on. What saved them was a series of small, deliberate daily choices. They chose structure over chaos. They chose purpose over despair. They chose the next meal over thinking about the next 2 months. They chose to hold the guy next to them together, even when they were falling apart themselves. When everything went dark, and I mean that in every possible way, they kept moving forward. Not heroically, not dramatically, just one small step, one small decision, one small hour at a time. That's the survival mindset. It's not about being tough. It's about being stubborn. It's about deciding one more time not to quit. If 33 men can hold each other together for 69 days at 2,300 feet underground, running on 2 spoonfuls of tuna and sheer human will, then whatever mountain is sitting on top of your life right now, you can handle it. Thanks for watching. If this story hit you the way it hit me writing it, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And I'll see you in the next one.